to challenge number 4. And before we get started, someone asked me the other day, where is everyone from that's attending the Get Organized Challenge? So if you can just post up real quick in the chat box where you are in the world, in the United States, in the UK, in Dubai, wherever. It's just kind of interesting and fun for us to see from where people are tuning in, so that'll be fun. All right, so welcome to Get Organized Challenge number 4, and we're going to talk today about something that's really difficult to sort, store, and organize, and those are tools like wood-mounted stamps, embossing folders, Cricut cartridges, dies, all of that kind of stuff. And so we're going to go through that process today. Let's start, though, with this week's winner. So, and I'm sorry if I'm going to butcher your name, Pai Ching Morales is this week's winner, and her progress report says, this week's sorting of embellishments has been slow going but steady. I've been feeling under the weather, so I've been tackling smaller containers of embellishments before I tackle larger piles. I don't want to burn myself out from this challenge. I can already see the end product system working for me. My 7-year-old son wanted to make a card and decorate his gift for the end of the year for his school teacher, and I was able to find everything we needed quickly and easily. Now, granted, the project was very simple, but it gave me hope for myself that once everything is set in place, it will be fabulous and so inspiring. So yay, thank you, Tiffany. Ladies, don't give up. You ladies, don't give up. You do in your own time see the light at the end of the tunnel. And then there's a little smiley face. So this is really kind of a cool thing, right? And sort of I talked a little bit about it in the paper storage thing, that as you're working through the process, you may not be able to get everything organized right away, but the things that you do have organized, when you need to do a project, you can already see the benefit. So I'm really going to encourage you to take a little time and do some crafting and reap that benefit of the work that you've been doing, because it is motivating and inspiring. You are able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, as Pi says, to keep going forward when you get to reap that benefit of the hard work that you've been doing. So just a quick reminder for anybody that's new, this is your first challenge. We do a giveaway every week where you win a gift certificate, and all you have to do to get into that drawing is post a progress report either on our Facebook page or send it via email, and all that information is going to come out in the follow-up email for you. So please participate in that. If you aren't a Facebook person in general, you may want to sign up just for this group, just so you can go in. It's very inspiring. It's very motivating. You can ask a lot of questions, all that kind of stuff. So if you're not on Facebook, it might be a good time for you to jump in just to that little piece of it so you can get the full benefit of the class. All right. So, sorry. Also, if you're new, there's a chat box going on the screen. If you have a question, type the word question in all caps, and then Karen is monitoring the chat down there, and she will do her best to answer those questions if somebody else on the chat doesn't already do it. A lot of people joining us today have already taken the Get Organized Challenge, so if you're new, don't feel like you can't join us again. It's kind of an ongoing process. Your craft supplies didn't get to the condition that they're in now in 8 weeks, so you may need to take a little more time to get them organized. All right. So our big goal for this challenge is to establish a system, a mental path that we can use for any kind of big, bulky tool or supply. So as I mentioned, Cricut cartridges, dies, wood mount stamps, acrylic stamps, all of those kind of things. How are we going to incorporate all of that stuff into our mental organization system so that it's easy to find? That's what we're talking about today. Problems with these is that they're not all the same size, they're not all the same shape, right? They stack up differently. So we're really going to address the value of creating some cataloging systems and integrating some examples of those products into your 4-section system so that you can remember that you have them, which is the biggest part, right? Just even remembering that we have it, and then actually use them. We haven't talked too much about gotta littles and gotta lots in the challenge, and so this segment is where it really comes into play. So for those of you who've joined us before, you already know gotta littles are people who have some dies, some wood stamps, some acrylic stamps, and they like them and they enjoy using them, but they're not passionate about them. They're probably not going to collect tons and tons of them. They just generally have them when they come in a kit or there's something special, right? So for you, you gotta littles, you're gonna do what we call representations right into your 4-section system. If you're a got a lot, if you're somebody who loves wood-mounted stamps, you're passionate about dies, you adore your Cricut machine, you have a lot of those things now, and you're going to get more as you go on. We're going to talk specifically with you about cataloging and upkeep of that catalog and how to integrate new things into that quickly and easily so that, again, you can remember what you've got and you can find your stuff. So let's start with what that means, the got a little representation, right? So if you're a got a little, you're going to create representations of each of the things that you've got. So I like to use the example of a gift box wood-mounted stamp for this, right? Because a gift box can go in so many categories. It can go in birthday, in baby, in graduation, in wedding, in Christmas, Mother's Day, Father's Day, anywhere that you might actually use a gift, right? Or a gift box, on a card, on a page, on a mixed media project. So in that kind of situation, what you're going to do is you're going to make an impression of that stamp, and you're going to put that impression of the stamp into all of those sections within your 4-section system where it might fit. You're going to give the stamp a number, and that's where that stamp is going to live. So depending on what storage tool, and I'm going to show you a bunch of different stamp storage tools as we go through today, you're going to be able to look through your 4-section system. I need a gift box stamp. I'm working on birthday. Oh, I'll use that gift box stamp. It's stamp number 10. You're going to go to the shelf or the stamp store and go bag or the stamp suitcase or wherever you've got that stored, pull that bag or that box or that item off the shelf and be able to find that stamp number 10, right? You're going to follow that same, if you're got a little, you're going to follow that same process for everything, whether it's Cricut cartridges or dies or acrylic stamps or wood stamps, punches, it doesn't matter. You're going to create a representation. You're going to number that stamp or punch so that you can find it. Now, what is the big benefit to the whole numbering thing? So I probably should have started with this. One of the things that happens when we collect tools is that we try to organize them by theme, which is it is what we've been doing for the last couple of weeks. But the problem with things like stamps and punches is that if you have all of your beach stamps together and all of your baby stamps together and all of your birthday stamps together, and let's say they're all in drawers, if your beach stamp drawer is full and you buy a new set of beach stamps, now you have to rearrange baby or rearrange birthday and work those beach stamps in. So you're constantly rearranging, buying different tools, trying to figure out a new way to store all those things together. Well, one of the beautiful things about creating this representation is that if you buy a new beach stamp and you have 150 stamps, say it's beach ball, you take that beach ball stamp and you think, oh, beach ball, this is going to be good for beach. I might use it in summer. I might use it in boys or babies, right? So I'm going to make 4 impressions of that. I have 149 stamps stored now. This becomes stamp number 150. I write the number 150 next to each of those representations, and I take that beach ball stamp and I put it in the next place on the shelf or in the next empty spot in the box that's labeled stamp number, 125 to however, to the end, however many I'm going to fill it up. So now I don't have to rearrange everything. I don't have to rethink everything. I've stamped out 4 impressions. I'm going to put them into whatever category they belong in, and I'm done, right? So it makes it really simple. It makes it simple to bring things into your collection and simple to put them away. One of the things that happens that we really have to keep in mind is that if you've got to do a lot of work to put that thing away, that new beach ball stamp, you're probably not going to find the time to do it. It's going to end up in a pile at the end of your desk or left in the bag under your desk or stuffed into the closet, and you're going to forget that you have it all together. So by creating representations, it makes it easy to add into your 4-section system and put that thing away wherever it belongs. Now, I want to step back for a minute and let you know, you don't have to go from start to finish on any of these things. You can start with that beach ball stamp as your very first, as your number 1 stamp, right? Because it's new and it's coming in the door, it can be stamp number 1, and whatever tool you're going to use going forward to organize those stamps, that can just become stamp number 1. So don't get hung up in that thought that, oh, these are already organized, so I have to go through these first, or I have to do this first. You don't have to do any of that, right? You can move forward with your newest things or your things that you haven't been working with at all because they're still in bags in the closet. Get them cataloged or get the representations done and move on. All right, so what we call that creating those representations, number, label, and integrate, right? So you're going to create that representation, number it, label it, integrate it in with the rest of your stuff, and put it away. So, and think about when you have a set of stamps that all go together, but they might be, they might work in different levels. So the stamp set that I'm looking at, I'm sorry I don't have it in front of me, is called Bon Appetit. It has a picture of a chef, the word Bon Appetit. It has a picture of a cake with a candle on it, a bottle of wine, and some cheese, right? So that all goes together for kind of a party, birthday party. But the chef is perfect for your cooking section or your home and family section or whatever. Bon Appetit is perfect for that as well. Everything might go in celebration. So what you want to do is just because you have that set of stamps that has 4 stamps, all of them belong in one place. Some of them might belong together in multiple places, but don't be afraid to break it up, right? So if you love to do wine tours, you might have a section that's just wine, and then you're going to want to take that wine bottle and put it in that wine section, but you're going to keep all those stamps together. You're going to number them all together, but you're going to be able to find that wine bottle when you need it, when you're looking through like your wine tour section to create a scrapbook page. So I hope that makes sense. And I'm going to show you a lot of examples, I guess. So once we kind of get through the meat of the ideas, it'll be easier to see. Okay, got-a-lots. You are going to create a catalog, and maybe 2 catalogs depending on your level of addiction and the specific products that you really like to work with. So some people are passionate about a particular brand of stamps, Stampin' Up!, close to my heart. I want to say Till Tuesday, but that's not it. I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, you're passionate about those things and you want to keep those things together, or you want to keep a catalog specifically of those things, especially if you go to the home parties, you want to be able to take that section with you. So before you start cataloging, if you're a got-a-lot and you're passionate about a particular brand, keep in mind you might want to do 2 catalogs. One that fits your 4-section system where everything's kind of together, and then one that is just brand specific as well. The numbers are going to be the same on those items when you catalog them. But you're going to be able to look for specific things to Stampin' Up! Or specific things to Close to My Heart separate from everything else. If you go to an event, you can take that catalog with you, and that way you make sure you're not buying things that you already own or things that are really similar to what you already own in that group. All right. So how do you make a catalog? Well, you can do it a couple of different ways. I've got mine here. I'm going to move all this kind of stuff out of the way here before I start knocking stuff on the floor. I did my catalog in a 12 by 12 format. You can do it in an 8.5 by 11 format or whatever you want to do. I use page protectors. These are the super size single. You can just punch paper and do it right on to paper. So this is obviously, these are acrylics, these are examples of acrylic stamps. And if you look at the number, or you look at them, right next to them, there's a number. This one says 4102, right? That number that's written next to the acrylic stamps is going to direct me to where they are. So whether it's an acrylic stamp, these are, I think, rubber mounted stamps, more acrylics. These are obviously dies. These are punches. So you can see my catalog has all the different tools that I use, and they all have a number, and that number is going to direct me right back to wherever I'm going to find that particular die, stamp, punch, whatever it is, right? So my catalog, even embossing folders. So here's a little trick with embossing folders. Whenever you're working with embossing folders, depending on the kind of machine you use, different machines require different shims or different sandwiches or recipes or whatever we call them to imprint that embossing folder. Well, what I did with the embossing folders, rather than running all of them through the machine to make an example of it, I just bought myself a new box of crayons and I just did a rubbing of each of those embossing folders right into the category where it belongs. And that way I didn't have to haul out a bunch of paper or haul out my machine, and I could move really quickly through my embossing folder. So if you're happy with the example that a rubbing is going to give you, then I would strongly recommend that you do that. So this page right here, this is what I call the borders and background section. These are all different embossing folders. This is where my OCD kicked in, right? I divided this up into 16 squares, and then I rubbed just a portion of each of the embossing folders into that square, and then you can see it just has a little number here, F13, F12, whatever it is, and that directs me to where those embossing folders are actually stored, right? So more borders and backgrounds with embossing folders, and I might have these in multiple places. So, well, this is called borders and backgrounds. This one looks like a tree, looks like a piece of wood. I would probably also have that in camping or outdoor. And then there's the ones that look like birthday stuff. So those are maybe here in borders and backgrounds, but also in the birthday section. So don't be afraid to put them in multiple sections. The other thing is, if you like a specific designer, again, at the same time that you're creating those rubbings in borders and backgrounds, you can create things specific to the designer page. So these are all Anna Griffin examples of embossing folders. These are all Tim Holtz examples of embossing folders. So you can do the two things together at the same time so that you can really see, so that you can know if you're looking for a specific designer. This is the back side of this paper, right? So we talked about buying stacks of paper that you don't really use, or buying paper that now you think is ugly or whatever. So I had this whole thing of black and white paper that I just never used it. I thought it was really cool when I bought it. I still think it's cool. I just never used black and white. So I just used the back side of it, which was white, as the sheets that I was making my catalog on. So if you're one of those people who wants to get the best use of things rather than just throw them away, think about using that back side of your paper for creating your catalog. So here's a whole nother section. These are all shapes. These are mostly punches. One of the other tips I have for you about punches is go ahead and write the size of the punch right on there, what size that circle is, what size that square is, so that if you're looking specifically for a 1-inch square, you can go to your shape section, you can go, oh, I need a 1.5-inch square. This number 51 is a 1.5-inch square. I know exactly where to go to get that 1-inch square, right? I don't have to guess, oh, is this 1.5 inches? Is this an inch? Is that 1.5 inches? I know because I just wrote it down right there next to the punch in my catalog example, right? Okay, so what does that look like when you start putting it into action? So we remember those pages that were labeled F, and that is how I labeled my flip and storage pages. So for those of you who are familiar with Scrap Rack brand, so here are the pages that are labeled with Fs. I'll flip back the cover here. So if I had wanted that embossing folder that was number F13, I could come right here to pocket number F13, and then I'm going to find that embossing folder that was cataloged right there in F13. Another little tip about embossing folders, let me get this one out too, so it'll kind of show you how the two different things work here. That's not the right one. When I did my embossing folders, this one is good. I just took the image that was on the package, ran it through my Xyron, and created a sticker out of it, and it's right on the front of the embossing folder. So I have the little example in my catalog. I also have a really strong visual now of what that's going to look like just by putting that on the front, right? So it works great. It's very visual. There's a problem with it though. This came out of a package where this was just super thin paper, so it was fine to put it on there. Some of the packaging is more of a thicker cardboard or thick cardstock or even chipboard image, and if you glue that to the top of your embossing folder and then run it through your machine, this square right here is going to prevent the machine from embossing the design. So what you're going to end up with is just embossing like everywhere that the square is not. So keep that in mind. Good solution for how to manage that. I just used a piece of clear tape at the top. So that's when I put this through the machine, I just flip that back and run it through the machine. No damage to this because it's so thin, it doesn't even affect that at all, but it doesn't damage at all the pattern of the embossing folder. So just a couple of little tips there. I write this, the pocket number right here on my embossing folder. So now I know where to put it back, right? So if I pull out, like I did here, a bunch of different embossing folders to use, maybe I'm going to an event and I know I want to take all my birthday embossing folders, so I pull those out really quickly. Because they're all numbered with the pocket number, it's going to be really simple for me to put those embossing folders right back when I get home. So it makes it really simple if you go ahead and put those embossing folder numbers right on the folders as well. Okay, so then we saw in the other catalog examples, move this over. We saw a bunch of acrylic stamps. One in particular, let me flip to that section. 4102 was that alphabet section. So you can see here's tab number 4, here's pocket number 102, and there's that set of alphabet stamps. So again, really easy for me to choose something out of my catalog that I want to work with, and then come directly to that place in my storage container. In this case, I'm using a scrap rack, so this is going to go right on my scrap rack base unit, so I can just flip through and see things. But really simple. So it doesn't matter what it is. You can see in this one, I've got the dies that match these stamps, right? And I put, this is called a sticky die storage card. I put the die storage card and the stamps together in that pocket. And so when I see the dies, they're still with the same label here as are on the stamps, because they're all in the same place. I know exactly where to go to find those dies, right? So if you're got a lot, doing the catalog and putting everything together is going to make it so simple to find everything. So again, it doesn't matter what it is. So you can see I've got my, you saw my acrylic stamps, so these are my red rubber stamps. I've got smaller embossing folders here, right? Here's those Tim Holtz embossing folders. So on the catalog, the Tim Holtz bingo card is labeled 8109. Here's pocket 8109. I go to tab 8, pocket 109, and I can find that exact embossing folder when I want to work with it. And it's, again, labeled, so it's easy for me to put it back. So it doesn't matter what tool you're using, you're going to follow that same system of putting things together by number. So this works really good for flat stuff, or if you're using a scrap rack, this is a great way to use it. If you are not using a scrap rack, or you prefer to keep all of your dies together separate from other things, then whatever die tool you're using, you're going to set it up the same way. So if you're got a little, you might use something like this. This is a die storage box, right? So this card is empty, but so here's borders and flowers, right? So following your 4-section system, you're going to have those same themes or categories. If you're got a little, you're going to just mark it on the end of the box what's in there, and then label this box as die storage box 1. And your examples are going to say that's in die storage box 1, card 1, whatever it is, right? So now I just want to, this whole category is huge, and there's a lot of steps to the process of it. So for those of you who don't know, there's a program on the website called Go 10, which is Get Organized in 10 Minutes a Day. And in that video series, I really break down each one of these processes, stamps, wood stamps, acrylic stamps, dies, Cricut cartridges, into their own little video. So if you're somebody who's thinking, oh, this is so overwhelming, I want you to take advantage of getting online and viewing those videos as well. And I'll send out a link to those today in the follow-up lesson to class, so you can go on and kind of choose the videos you want to watch if you're somebody who thinks you'll benefit from a little bit more step-by-step. So those videos are me actually doing the process that I'm talking about, and you see like all of it. You see the mess on my desk, you see me making the examples, numbering things, and it has a whole bunch of tips and tricks for actually getting there, right? Okay, so what about wood stamps? Same kind of thing. Or, sorry, I'm going to go back to acrylic stamps. If you're not using a scrap rack, ooh, that's on my mic, sorry about that. If you're not using a scrap rack, you can use something as simple as this. So some people are using CD cases, right? So this says CD case number 1. So if this had stamps in it, maybe the first 4 stamps that are on this page, it would just be in my catalog or as a representation in my 4-section system, and it would be numbered CD1, and I would go to my basket, that was all the CD cases, and find number 1, and I would know that those stamps were in there. If you're using something like this, so these are close to my heart, They come with a number, so it's easy to put them in numeric order. Add them to your catalog or your example. So I guess I didn't really show an example. Let me go back here for a second. Find something in my little sample set here. Okay, so here's a good example. Minnie Mouse, number 9, right? So if I'm got a lot, this is going to be on the catalog, my big catalog, and it's going to be in the Disney section of the big catalog, right? For those of us who are Disney junkies. It's going to say number 9. And then I'm going to go to my stamp store and go bag right here. So, and this is, make sure I got the right side, Woody's with black stamps, 1 through 22. And I'm going to go, oh, there it is. There's that Minnie Mouse stamp, right? Number 9. So I'm going to be able to find the stamp quickly and easily. So again, if I'm got a little, I might only have one of these containers with wood-mounted stamps filled on both sides. But my impressions of these are going to be right in the pocket. So I would literally slip this into a pocket in the Disney section. And when I was slipping through working on Disney, I would remember that I had that Minnie Mouse stamp. And I would know exactly where to go to use it, right? So within this system, and again, this is called a stamp store and go bag. This is double-sided. They come single-sided also, right? So it has a little tray in the bottom of it, and that makes it easy to pull your stamps all the way out and keep them nice and neat and flat. Underneath this Minnie Mouse stamp, you can see that there's a picture of the Minnie Mouse stamp, right? So once you get everything organized into these trays, if you take a photocopy of it, which I did right here, and you can see this is kind of a funky photocopy. I literally put this in the bag where it belongs, closed it up, and I literally put it onto the copy machine like this. So you can see I have the little Velcro image there that's on the bag. And it's not a perfect copy, but it does show me where all the stamps belong. Because I'll tell you what's going to happen. Once you get all these worked into the tray so that you're maximizing that space in the tray, and then you start taking them out and using them and things get moved around, I don't know what it is, but it's almost impossible to fit everything back in this solid form, right? So that's why I made the photocopies of the stamps, because then I can easily know where everything goes to maximize that space. So I have one copy in the bottom of the tray, but I could also take that second copy and put it underneath here, right? And then if I wanted to, when I pulled this out, that would be helpful too. I wouldn't have to pull out all the stamps to see where everything belonged when I was putting things away. So taking a few minutes and making that photocopy is great. If you are more OCD and you don't want the image of the bag and the photocopy, you can always just tip your stamps over onto your copier within the 8.5 by 11 diagram on the copier, and make that copy and get a cleaner, nicer copy and put it in there. So that will work too. It just depends on how OCD you are, whether you can handle the lines and Velcro or not. But it makes it so much simpler to put everything away, right? So you can see on this side, I have a ton of stamps, right, all packed in, and there's lots of little ones. So if you start pulling those out, it gets really hard to get them all back in there. So make it simple on yourself. Take that extra minute and make the copy of the dies stamps, all right? So same kind of thing here. We've got, these are the cases that Stampin' Up! Stamps come in. They take up a lot of space, and a lot of times when you get something like this, it's not totally full. There'll be big empty gaps. I don't have any stamps left in there, but there'll be big empty gaps in it. So you're going to create the catalog, write the number on the box of the example that you've got. So this says like Stampin' Up! 5. It's going to be in my catalog, whatever it was, as SU5. I'm going to know to come to this basket and find this box, and I'll find that product in this box. Now, if you want to consolidate, the other problem with these is they don't stand up. They don't stack up, right, because they have this weird edge. So if consolidating your space is important, using something like the double-sided stamp bag is really going to be helpful. This is our stamp and supply suitcase. So this has this is numbered SSC1, which is Stamp Supply Suitcase 1, and it's the whimsical alphabet. So this these 3 boxes, whimsical lowercase, whimsical uppercase, and whimsical numbers, are all inside my stamp supply suitcase. So not only is it easier to store because I can just put it on the shelf like a library of stamps, like this. I can label on the side, has the pull-up handles, I can take it with me. It takes up a lot less space. Those are all great things, right? But really, I wouldn't probably remember that I had uppercase, lowercase, and numbers because they could easily be in 3 different baskets or on 3 different shelves, especially if I didn't buy them all together. So by putting them into a container that holds the whole series of stamps or that whole style of stamps, now when I want to use these, I've got uppercase, lowercase, and numbers all together. When I put these in my catalog, I have a little sample catalog sheet here. Let's see. So, alphabets and numbers. So, and this just says SU5, right? 1, 2, 3, ABC. So if I'm going to use them in here, that's what I'm going to put. But if I'm going to put them in here, I'm going to add 3 lowercase. Then I know exactly the size of them, and I'm going to change the number to be SSC1. Right? So you can do it either way. It depends on the amount of space, the accessibility that you have, how easy you want it to be to get things, to find things and get to them. So space-saving tools are really helpful, and they allow you to store more in less space and actually find things more quickly and more easily. I kind of got off on a tangent here, and I'm not following my PowerPoint, and now my computer screen went blank. Sorry. Let's make sure I'm talking about what I'm supposed to be talking about here. Catalog, stamps, punches. You may want to come up with some little codes, depending on how much of a got-a-lot you are, that indicates, like I said, SU for Stampin' Up, CTMH for Close to My Heart, so that you know what brands those are. I know a lot of people who submit their work, they need to know what brands are and what particular designs or styles they were. So you can indicate that all by how you label your supplies. Now again, I talked briefly in the beginning, you might want to, as you're stamping, so if I was a Stampin' Up girl, this was my favorite brand, as I was creating my general catalog, alphabets and numbers, I'm going to put these in, then I might also create at the same time a Stampin' Up unique catalog where I put those examples of those stamps in there. Same kind of thing, alphabets, numbers, themes A to Z, calendar year, that was just specifically to Stampin' Up. So I would be able to pull that information if I was going to an event or if I was trying to submit some design work that I had done or something like that. All right, I had to click through my pages here. I'm ahead of myself. Okay, Cricut cartridges are no different, right? So when you talk about a Cricut cartridge, you get a box like this, right? And it has a ton of little options inside the box. This is a travel cartridge. So what I do is I take a photocopy of the back of the box for travel, and then I put that copy of the photocopy in the travel section. I give the Cricut cartridge a number, so this is number 1. Now if you want to keep your Cricut cartridges in the box, which some people do, I just put a number on the box. If you store them in there's the tray system that holds like 16 Cricut cartridges and your booklets and overlays. You can put them in the tray system too, and just number the tray where you're going to put that cartridge, right? So maybe it's 12. So you would just number each little segment on the tray for the cartridges 1 through 12. I put a little number right on my cartridge, number 1. I've got the same number 1 on the book, and I'll put the same number 1 on my overlay. So if any of these things get separated at any point, I can just go, oh, that's booklet number 1. It goes in box number 1 or space number 1, whatever tool I'm using to store it. It's really easy to put those things back together. If I'm going to an event and I'm going to work on travel pictures, I can go to my travel catalog and go, oh, I definitely want to take my Cricut cartridge number 1. And I can go to my shelf, pull that box number 1 off the shelf, throw it in my tote, and have everything with me, and I'm out the door with everything I need. I haven't brought anything extra. And when I get home, I know exactly where to put that box back on the shelf. There's not a bunch of rearranging going on, right? So you can use the same kind of concept no matter what the tool is, whether it's a die, a wood stamp, a Cricut cartridge, a punch, it doesn't matter. So here's that same, this is our single-sided store and go bag. And this has 23 punches in it, and they're just numbered the same way, right? 1 through 23. I've got it down the side here. It says punches 1 through 23, and they're going to be in my catalog. So here's that sunshine punch, right? Number one, there it is. Super easy to find and use that exact punch really quickly. So same concept, same idea. Different storage tools, same catalog or representation. So remember, if you're a got a little, you're going to take this little sunshine punch right here, and you're just going to write the number on it. You're just going to slip that little sun punch right into your summer section or your travel section, or both probably, maybe your beach section too. It's going to say number 1. You're going to know exactly where to go to get that number 1 punch. So it makes it really simple. All right, so we're getting ready to wrap this up. So if you have questions that you haven't answered yet, or if there are questions that you want that Karen's going to bring up specifically, we're going to get ready to wrap that up. Now remember, when you do your examples, and I'm just going to hang on one second. I'm going to pull this little example card from here and bring it back. Sorry. Usually I have this on my desk. So these are tiny punches, right? They're just on a 4x6 card. But if I would have punched out all of these little tiny animal punches and put that sample into my scrap rack, it would get lost more than likely. So if you have a lot of small punches, depending on how many you have, if you just put a card into your scrap rack or into your 4-section system, so this would go in your animal section, and you would see all those different animal punches that you have without them getting lost or buried. And again, each one of them just has a little number on it. So if I want to use the frog punch, I know exactly where to go. I don't have my glasses on, so I don't have any idea what number it is actually. But it'll direct me right to that stamp bag where that, or right to that punch bag where that is. So if you're using little tiny punches or little tiny stamp impressions, you might want to put them all on one card. So the same thing, if you have a bunch of stars that are all different sizes, you may just want to make a card and put that in. Or maybe you have, 8.5 by 11 or 6 by 12 worth of those particular things, and then just put it into your 4-section system so that you can find it. Okay. As you go through this process this week, you are going to come across things that you only have one stamp or punch for, right? So let's say you only have one dog stamp, right? One animal stamp, which is hard to believe, but you might. So there's going to be a temptation to not start your animal category, to say, well, I don't have any animal punches, I don't have any animal Cricut cartridges, I don't have any animal dies, I just have this one dog punch, or this one dog stamp. It doesn't matter. Start your section anyway, because trust me, you're going to come across things that you're going to add to that section. And when you buy something new, another dog stamp or a punch or a die or whatever, that category's already started, so you can just add right to it. So even if you're using 12 by 12 pages and you only have one thing on that page, you want to start the category. Don't make an excuse that you'll get to it later. Start it, give it a number, and put it where it belongs. All right. We talked about embossing folders. Okay, so this week's challenge, if you're ready, is to catalog 20 things a day for the next 7 days. So 140 items you're going to catalog this week. Here comes Karen with my question list. Da-na-na, in my large font, so I don't have to find my glasses.
You might have to. It's not that big.
Oh, look, she's right. I do have the glasses. I got them. All right. How to store dies for the Got a Little. Did I miss that? So, Got a Little, die storage. I don't know what tools you're using right now for storage. If you're using a scrap rack, you can just put those dies right into a pocket page, right? We also have a sticky die storage card that'll fit in our 4x6 page, which I'll show you again really quickly here. Let me get to that page. So this will take your dies and kind of mount them on this self-stick card, and then if you're using a scrap rack, it can go right into your 4x6 or Fab 4 page. It fits in that pocket. But you can just put your dies right into your pocket storage, right? If you're keeping your dies in their containers, in the kind of clamshell type boxes they come in, kind of hard for me to answer that question without knowing what kind of storage tool you're using. You would follow the same sort of process as we did here, where you give each one of those containers a number, store it in a basket or a drawer numerically, make that example. So I don't even know what that is. There's no picture on there. Oh, look at that. There's no picture on any of them. Well, those are bad brand example for picture. But if you're storing them in those containers, if you're storing them maybe in CD cases, you're going to number the CD case. Same thing. It doesn't matter. But you can put them, or you can put them right into your 4-section system if you're using the same, depending on the kind of tool you're using. So let's say you're using pizza boxes, and this pizza box is all beach things, and you get a beach die. That die can go right into that pizza box, right? The more stuff you can keep together, the better off you're going to be, the easier it's going to be to find your stuff. If you're got a lot, putting things together in a big place, like in a big catalog like this, makes it a little bit easier because you're only going to one place to look for the actual stamp, right? Or the die or whatever it is. They're all together in one area in that thing. But if you're got a little, try to integrate them right into your supplies. Is borders and backgrounds considered a theme? It is for me. So it just totally depends how you think of things, right? So some people have their borders separate from their backgrounds. What I found, especially with embossing folders, was that a lot of embossing folders now come with a little border strip. A lot of dies will have a border strip, and then, so let me show you what I'm talking about here. So I got this little set here. It's called the nautical, right? So these are all nautical themed dies, right? So this is a border, right? So some people are going to put that under border, but it'll fit with any of these other things. So I use borders and backgrounds together just because they tend to work. A lot of them work in conjunction with others, but you could separate out your borders from your backgrounds separately. But I say definitely on a theme. You know, you have a lot of those other things that you need to, if you use stamps, swirls, dots, flourishes, all of those kind of things, and those are really generic. They're really just sort of background or trim design things. So if you train your brain to go looking for those things all in one place, it's going to be a lot more efficient than to try and go, oh, I should put these under flourishes, I should put these under swirls, I should put this under, you know, backgrounds. If you put all of those kinds of things together in one place, it's going to be a lot easier, because remember, you can always take that. So let's say you have a flourish that's really kind of swirly. It might remind you of snow or wind or an ocean wave. So you're going to make that impression 3 times, put it in winter for snow, put it in weather for wind, put it in beach for an ocean wave, right? So anywhere you might use it, you're going to have that example in your catalog, so you're going to really get the most use out of it, and then that catalog number is going to drive you back to wherever that's stored. Do you run through the die through the machine and then catalog? Yes. You don't have to do that. I did it. Here's something else I forgot to talk about. Oh. So in here with my dies, and you could do this in your scrap rack or in your box storage, whatever storage you're using. I cut the card off the front of the packaging, and I just have it right in here with my dies. You can see I even have my Christmas brass stencils in the same dynamic storage system. But so now the back is the recipe, right? What kind of shims I need or sandwich I need to build to make these work. But it also then I have a good example of what that particular die looks like. So if I was going to store these on a sticky die storage card in my scrap rack, I would still take this and put it right in the pocket with my sticky die storage card, so I remembered what they look like, what all the pieces are for it, how they go together, all of that kind of stuff. So you can put all of those things together at the same time, right? I guess then let me go back to the question, do you need to run it through the machine? You don't have to, right? You could take a photocopy of this, right, and put it in, well, this is all poinsettias, so it's probably only going to go in winter. You might put it in floral or flowers or whatever too, I guess. But you could take photocopies of these and put them in every category that you thought they might belong in. For those of you who are super techie and digitally, you might want to just take a picture of this and then save a picture in each file, Christmas, floral, whatever it is, as well, so that you had that example of what it looked like. When I did my die examples and I did my die catalog, I ran all of them through the die cutter. And one of the benefits to doing that is if you have dies that don't actually work, sometimes a manufacturer will put out a die that actually doesn't work. Then you know, and I have an example of that. Oh, right here. Where is it? I know I have it. I kept it just for this class, just to show people. So now I know there's some tricks also to making dies work. Look, this is all wrapped up in my little bag. But this is an opportunity then for you to run your die through the die cutter and see what it actually looks like. So it's a great way to, I should put on my glasses right so I can see what I'm doing here. This die, I don't know what the brand is. I wouldn't say anyway, I guess, but this is what this die produced for me, right? This is what I got, right? There's ways to sharpen it. There's ways to poke things out. There's a plethora of things that you can do. None of them worked for me. And I just thought, this is annoying. I'm never going to use this. So just get rid of it. Throw it away. Oh, you know, that's very painful. If you have a die that doesn't work, though, why are you keeping it? If it's not going to work, it's not going to do the job. It was a bad design. I'll tell you, I have a couple other designs they're just bad designs, right? They don't work. So I threw this away and then I dug it out of the garbage because I said I need to keep this as an example for class. If things don't work, if you had a dried up marker, would you keep it? No, unless it was refillable. That's a different story, but you're not going to keep stuff that doesn't work. You shouldn't be keeping dies, or if you have a stamp that you bought, maybe it was a bargain stamp, and you get it home and it doesn't stamp well, it doesn't, you know, the lines aren't clear, or it's unlevel, or whatever it is, get rid of that stuff. And so actually creating your dies, using your stamps to make those examples, will really give you some insight into how well that stamp works, right? So this stamp right here, I don't know if you can see it, but it's a flower. But this little corner of it, no matter how many times I tried to stamp it, this little corner didn't fill in. I should have kept that too for an example, right? So it didn't fill in. I'm never going to use that stamp, right? I've got plenty of beautiful floral stamps. I don't need to use one that doesn't work properly. So actually going through the process of cutting with all those dies, punching with all those punches, is going to give you an opportunity to kind of weed through what things work well and what things don't, what things you want to keep or what things you don't want to keep, those kind of examples. So I would definitely say there's some benefit to it. Now, if you are a got a lot, though, it could take forever to get through all of those dies, running them through that process. So it may be faster and easier for you to put them all on a copy machine and copy them and number them. So you can take any of those kind of shortcuts. But with dies, especially when you run them through, you get a really good example of what you're going to get when you start working with that for a project. All right, so that's it for questions from Karen today. So, here's your assignment. It's very simple this week. 20 items a day for 7 days, 140 for the week. You could actually do them all in a day or split it up in just 2 days. But your goal is to get 140 items cataloged this week. Right? And then don't worry, because each week we're going to add a few more and you can just keep working through the process. For most of you, especially if you've got a lot, you have a lot more than 140 things to catalog. Shh, I won't tell your husband, but you and I know it, that there's a lot more than 140 things. And we're just going to work through those slowly but surely, very steadily as you go through. Super simple. So catalog, do your cataloging, put up your progress post. and then get your reward and take advantage again of getting that reward. So I guess that's it for today. Have a super productive week. Have fun playing with all your toys. So that's one of the nice things about this challenge too, is that you actually get to do something that's a little bit crafty as you go through the process. I will look forward to reading your progress posts over the course of the week, and I look forward to talking to you again next Tuesday. Have a good one.